And Mike Johnson had an update on PWInsider.com about WWE's documentary on Vladimir the Superfan. And it's not a good one. If you are an old school fan, you know who Vladimir is. You have seen him before, I guarantee it, even if you have no idea of the guy's name. Who are you talking about? If you were watching WWF going back to the 80s and through the 90s into the 2000s, you have seen this man before. He is unmistakable. And he was everywhere. In the front row, he was everywhere at all the Madison Square Garden shows, and not even just MSG. He went to other shows as well. During this year's WrestleMania, WWE announced that they filmed a documentary about the guy that was scheduled to premiere on Peacock this summer. They spent more than 2 years filming for this. They interviewed countless names: Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Jimmy Hart, Bruce Pritchard, among others. They said it also touched on the effect that the pandemic had on him with no live fans being allowed at the shows for so long. I was really looking forward to seeing the final product. And I've met Vladimir before. I mean, this guy was like a celebrity when I spotted him on Bourbon Street at WrestleMania 30. I was in New Orleans for WrestleMania the year Daniel Bryan won the championship. And I got, I have a whole picture with him on Bourbon Street. I just happened to be walking, and again, unmistakable. I looked and I said, that's Vladimir. I got to go over and shake that guy's hand. And he couldn't be nicer, just really cool and just having fun and laughing and smiling and everything. And the guy is jacked as all shit. So if you've ever met Vladimir, you know he's, a pretty cool, down-to-earth guy. But I was really looking forward to this because I thought, well, this is interesting, not just about his story and finding out who is this guy. Like, I know his name, and I know, he's the guy that always looked buff, and he'd be wearing the tank tops or whatever, he had the glasses on, and he'd be in the front row, but what's his story? Like, what's the deal with this guy? And how did he manage to get, front row tickets for so long at the Garden and just always be kind of like Johnny on the spot? And in the camera frame, when all these top stars would come down to the ring and some of them would shake his hand and interact with him, who is that guy? It's like, I wonder the same thing about some of the front row fans now. The guy in the green shirt guy, who's like there with his mother. I mean, who is this guy? Brock Lesnar shirt guy. Well, I don't really, care as much about that, but there are certain people, there are certain fans, you see them all the time, and you wonder, how do they always get the seat in the same place all the time? Who could afford that? Who has time for that? So there could be some interesting fan documentaries. I think you want to be careful. You don't want to necessarily start glorifying all the fans, because then they'll just think, they'll think they're part of the show. But I think there are some fans who have interesting stories, and people would like to know who they are because they've been seeing them on TV for so many years. So I've been looking forward to seeing the final product. And, Mike Johnson, who is best friends with Vladimir, has also been talking about it a lot over the course of the year. And he saw the final product because it did run as part of a film festival. I think it was like an LA film festival back in September. But Johnson had seen the finished final product of the movie and thought it was fantastic. Summer came and went when it was supposed to drop on Peacock. Nothing happened. And then we started hearing about other documentaries that were scheduled to air that were pulled. Like the WWE Untold on the Nexus. And the Icons episode. They had a whole series of Icons documentaries on Yokozuna and Beth Phoenix and the British Bulldog. And there was supposed to be an Icons episode on Lex Luger. And that also got pulled and never saw the light of day. The Luger one even had an air date. And days before, got pulled at the last minute. Because I think they were planning on timing it around July 4th, the whole Intrepid thing when he slammed Yokozuna on the Intrepid, and they pulled it. It's bad enough to film stuff and then not release it. And I had some people say, well, TV networks and movie studios do that sort of thing all the time, as if that's some kind of explanation that makes it better. I didn't ask you to explain to me that it happens elsewhere. I'm saying that it is a shitty situation. It's no less shitty that other companies or other, film studios do that sort of thing all the time. I don't give a shit. I'm talking about this. I don't care what they do. And to me, what makes this different is the fact that in a lot of these cases, like with the Luger thing, and certain other things as well, they even advertised John Cena on the Broken Skull sessions. And then that magically didn't happen and turned into Seth Rollins instead. But I mean, I was led to believe that it was already filmed. Not that Cena was scheduled to do it and had to pull out. So there have been countless examples of them pulling this, but when you give a specific air date to something, when you are actively advertising and promoting it to your audience on TV and on social media, and then you just don't deliver, there is no excuse for that. There is no valid excuse for that. It has nothing to do with budget cuts. This stuff is already filmed. It's done. It's post-produced. It's in the can, ready to run. Johnson's latest update is that there has been no communication between Vladimir and WWE in months, and there are no plans to release the documentary anytime soon, if ever. If the documentary was a wrestler, I bet they wouldn't hesitate to release it. They've released 80 people this year so far, yet they won't release one documentary. There was talk that maybe they were holding back because they were trying to license them to a third party to air them like A&E or maybe another streaming service, but that hasn't happened. And it's ridiculous when they have their own streaming partner, and this type of content is one of the draws of their own network outside of the pay-per-views. I don't know what he means by this, but Johnson also said that having seen the documentary himself, if it does not air before the end of the year, some of the ending will be outdated by that point. He says Vladimir has had some health issues of late, so it's really unfortunate that they're holding the film hostage. I don't know what they're waiting for, but between this and the other stuff I mentioned, and again, even the Broken Skull thing with Cena that was advertised and got pulled, it's embarrassing that they keep making these announcements and failing to deliver. Failing to deliver what is some of the best content they have to offer, better than what they air on television every week. So either keep your mouth shut and don't announce anything until you're actually ready to air it, or even better, get off your asses and air it already. Enough of this shit. Raw on Monday night was back at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn for the second straight night. It was the smallest crowd WWE has ever done at the Barclays Center since the building opened in 2012. They set it up for about 5,500. They basically hit that number, but if they thought they could sell more tickets, then they would have opened it up to a lot more. They could have had north of 10,000. They didn't have anywhere close to that.